faculty when we were multidisciplinary. And I think this was a big struggle to be established autonomously outside of a faculty. And I remember there were debates, because once somebody said, if you're outside of a faculty, you won't get access to funds. But then he said, well, we will just have to make them give us our funds. And I mean, we continue to debate because the IGDS is still outside of a faculty and sometimes falls through the cracks. But it is my personal view that that is what has been its greatest strength, because it was autonomous, its staff could make decisions, we had control over our own budget, and I would really like to stress the importance of continuing that multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary thread to reach out. But I just want to say two more things about MAT. In 1996, first of all, in about the 1990s, some of our male students began one of the first men's organizations on the campus. It was called ATOM, the Association for the Transformation of Masculinities. They didn't get a large membership. I remember once asking, why you think it? I said, well, most men don't feel the need for transformation, so that whole name turns them off. But what was interesting is that the founder of that group, Jerome Tiluxing, who's now a lecturer in history, he went on to declare November 19th International Men's Day. Apparently it was his father's birthday. And if you go online now, you'll see that International Men's Day has become a global day of recognition. And then in 1996, we had the first conference, Caribbean Masculinities Towards a Research Agenda, that was held on this campus.
So I have a question for each panelist, because we have to also think of the other roundtable that's coming up. So for Peggy, I'm going to ask you, what is the legacy of WAND in your view? That's for Peggy. For Joycelin, I want to ask you if you think, what are your thoughts about the development part of the Institute for Gender Development Studies? Do you think we sometimes tend to forget the development part of the IGDS? For Elsa, I wanted to ask you, what are the continuing threats to IGDS in your view? From the position of, I remember you were deputy principal, then principal. So from an administrative point of view, do you see any threats? Maybe you could warn us so that we could look out for them. For Barbara, have we really made a difference in the architecture of power and gender relations in the Caribbean and on the UWI and within the UWI? And for Rhoda, I wanted to ask you, what are some critical dimensions of gender as a discipline and gender pedagogy that still need to be explored? So anyone can start based on the question you have, and if you have internalized the question. Yes, okay, Peggy.
I'll start. WAND's legacy. And I'm glad that you asked the question, because it's made me think about it, you know, because I retired from WAND in 1995, and the program changed quite radically, so that the WAND today is not the WAND of that period. The WAND between 1987, 78 rather, 78 and 1995. I think that there are just three things that I think of. One is, I think we forged a different kind of relationship between the university and the community. In a sense, we brought the university to the community in a way that the extramural department did not. I mean, and I'm saying that very carefully because extramural has an incredible relationship with the communities they served, and this was one of the reasons that we wanted to be part of extramural department rather than any other part of the university. In the sense that we actually went out into communities, we worked with unions, we worked with teachers, we worked with the media, in a way that where we were listening to what their needs were and trying to respond in that way. we used non-formal education methodologies, and that is why I was saying, Verene, that we did a lot of teaching. We did a lot of teaching, and the teaching we did were to people who may not have even been to secondary schools, but it was teaching and learning. It was not teaching, it was learning, and we were also learning. So it was a process of teaching and learning and creating knowledge that came out of lived experiences in a very rich way. That was one thing. I think that we changed the lives of people who we worked with. I think that a lot of the people that we worked with, whether they were farmers or women in communities or people working in the media or in the churches, were transformed by the opportunity of working with a group of people from the university who were not bringing with them the baggage of the university, if I could put it that way. I mean, we were not going there as people that knew anything more than the people who we worked with. And that was very empowering to people to recognize that we were learning also from them and validating their knowledge. I think we, in that way, we offered a different framework for analysis. And this is, I give credit to the work I did with Dawn, because I remember in the 1980s we were looking at the issues of structural adjustment, for instance, and we were able to engage with people in farmers' associations, in communities, in doing an analysis, looking at the world in a different kind of way. I don't have time for examples, but just one example was the work that we were doing with the farmers' associations. And at the time when the Caribbean was losing the access to the European markets, Dole and Chiquita were going around trying to buy out the banana associations. And I remember the Windward Island Bananas Association in St. Vincent were able to resist that because they could see around what was actually going on. A different way of looking at the world, I think, not just from that gender lens, but that gender lens as part of a revolutionary lens, a critical lens for looking at the world. And I think finally I want to mention our teaching, because we had a women's studies program in WAND. It was called Andai's School. I see Alyssa is there, and I wanted to take that to Andai, because we had an Andai's School for the staff of WAND. Because we had people on the staff who were not feminists and didn't know anything about feminism, and we had one of the women I considered one of the most revolutionary women I know in the Caribbean, Andai from Guyana, and she was our mentor, and she took us through that. We also did women's studies programs for NGOs, and Rhoda was part of that. We had these regional programs. So I think that was the legacy that we offered. And I just wanted to, in summary, I think we changed the lives of people that we worked with in a very profound way.
Thank you. I'm aware that we have a session coming up at 3, so I ask for quick answers in this round. Elsa?
Yes. Well, I'll be very quick. I think institutionalization is not yet complete. I think that there are still several areas in terms of providing a physical home on some campuses where there's inadequacy and a presentation